Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Prep Life Podcast. This is your founder and CEO of Glam Girl Bikini, Amy Anger. And today I have the special privilege of being joined by Joanna Dara, and she is the hormone specialist at Hormone Logics that is a coach liaison with me at times with my athletes and has been, she has a wealth of knowledge and has a background as a licensed nutritionist and a lifestyle educator. So, can you tell us a little bit about your background, Joanna? Welcome to the show. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited
Thank
about
you
it.
for
And
having me.
yeah, so why don't you start with kind of where your education and all that, how that whole process started to your current position today?
Well, thank you again for having me. I'm super excited. I've listened to you for as long as I've known you now. It's been a few years, so it's been great. I'm really excited for this. Um, so a little bit about me. I am born and raised, for the most part, South Florida. I was born in New York, moved here when I was 2. So um, graduated from high school in Coral Springs, Parkland, Florida, went up to Florida State on a softball scholarship, came home very quickly after that, and ended up going to FAU, and really found that when I was going to school, my passion's been medical. I wanted to go to medical school. That was my thing. And somewhere in the process, I was engaged at the time and found out I was pregnant with my son. I was 19. So the shift from medical school had to kind of happen, and not that it always has to, but it had to happen with us. And I decided to go in, and I got my communications and then minored in nutrition at the time. So, but my passion's always been medical. So even though I love getting out there and talking to people, I did what I needed to do, be a single mom, take care of my son, and go to college and finish my education. And it was just one of those things where I decided, you know what, I can't not do something that I really, really love. So I went back to get my master's, and got my master's in nutrition dietitian, and focus more on nutritional side of things. I didn't go and do all my clinicals to get a dietitian's license. For reason being is I don't like the medical side of nutrition. I like I call it the proactive side. I like the side where people understand how to stay healthy with food and different types of foods and how it helps us, rather than treating somebody who's already sick, then getting them better because now I have to change their mindset. I hopefully that makes sense, but
It
I've just always
100%
been that
does.
person. I'm just all about being proactive rather than reactive. So um, with that being said, and I started, doing nutrition on the side while, building a bit of a small business, but still having to work in, corporate America for sake of paying bills and taking care of my son. In 2011, I had met, the owner of Hormone Logics. In 2012, he had said, "Hey, Joanna, I really would love to expand the hormone side of things into, nutrition and maybe even women." Going back 10 years ago, hormones in women were completely taboo. They didn't think that it was something that women, they think testosterone, men, sex, and muscles. That's what they think about. They don't think women at all. So it was such a taboo subject. But I also knew as a nutritionist that I could write the best meal plan in the world, but if your hormones aren't balanced, as you know, we all know, we hit a brick wall with our diet. We could be spot on, but the hormones need to be balanced. So it really took me down this avenue through A4M to get my certifications and become, certified hormone specialist. I started focusing on women more so, obviously, and in this men's world out there. But as women, I always say we have a lot of moving parts, and a lot of them have overlapping symptoms. So it's really understanding all sides: endocrinology, gynecology, rheumatology, general medicine, gastro. So really being able to expand the business and understanding, became licensed to read blood work alongside my doctor, worked alongside some of the most amazing doctors over the years. And here we are. I'm here 11 years now, and have I really do have the most incredible job, working with women. So it's kind of took you from high school, college, masters, and here.
Absolutely.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and you do so much to help. And you had mentioned different types of medicine, and I feel like your holistic approach and how you, include all of those different things is so valuable and so needed. How can you describe to us how you also bring it up a tier and a notch, in my opinion, with like your personal story with competing and also with the thyroid issues that you had? I do feel like you bring another extra element to the table because you can empathize with a lot of athletes when it comes to competing and how to make sure that that's optimal and healthy and all that. So I know that was kind of a big question, but
No, yeah, absolutely. So I started competing again, being in the world of nutrition and really living a healthy lifestyle. I knew being a young mom, I knew that I wanted to train and teach and allow for my son to learn through what I do, not what I say. So I've always been, being an athlete growing up. I cheered professionally for a short period of time. So I always knew that health was a thing. But I wasn't playing sports anymore. And I was like, I really still want to do something. So in 2010, I'm like, I'm just going to, which everybody says at first, I'm just going to really diet like I'm going to compete, but I'm not going to compete. I don't really want to compete ever. Fast forward, I started competing in 2011, and I did it in a INFBB. It was like like a natural league back then. It was a lot of fun. I kind of even did a crossover to see like figure. Do I want to do bikini? Bikini was it. So I started with a team in 2012. Was with them for a few years. Really enjoyed the sport. Enjoyed the health aspect behind it. The coaching wasn't exactly what I wanted at that point, knowing because I have the knowledge of what's right for our bodies, health wise, longevity. And as well as I do, we're on that stage for a few minutes. We're in our life for a long time. So if we're not healthy on the inside, it will exude on that stage as well in that short period of time that you're up there. But I care about how healthy I was for longevity, to be able to be healthy with, life. And I started working with another coach. I started working with Jamie from Fit Body Fusion in 2017. It was like a light switch went off on me. I'm like, this was it. This is where I needed to be, because we had that same mindset. But then her and I started working together about, we really needed this baseline in this world of competing, of blood work and understanding why it's not just about that stage. So, I was in a prep with her and going through this point where I was working with all the girls too. She's like, Joanna, this is when I send you to you, like something's going on with you. I'm like, I know. And as women and entrepreneurs and moms, we just put ourselves on the back burner. And sometimes at that point I realized I'm not really practicing what I preach to these girls that I work with and as all these women. So I started on my own little journey. At the time I was in a reverse and just trying to like reverse up to a decent caloric intake so that I could cut back down, and I just couldn't get there. I was exhausted. I felt like my body weighed 150 pounds more than what it was. I was just heavy and, but just trying to push through because that's what we do.
yeah,
And
right.
I finally saw a couple of endocrinologists, doctors. My doctors here knew something's going on with your thyroid. Again, it goes back to being proactive. So like even when we read blood work, we don't wait for something to flag high or low. We want to make sure that we are optimal before, and we discuss it and we get to that optimized spot. Well, my levels weren't optimized, but trying to reiterate that to, and not all general medicine doctors, but like people in the other world of medicine, and not functional and not integrative like we are, they're like, you're fine, you look fine. And I got the whole, you're in your 40s, maybe it's time to hang up the heels. I'm like, that doesn't work for me. And then I got are you, maybe you're not eating right, or maybe you're not training as hard because you're not, competing right now. Like, I really don't have the time to be sitting in multiple doctor's offices if I wasn't eating right. I'm a licensed nutritionist. I also, it's not my hormones. Don't just assume. So I finally found a doctor who would listen to me. I actually cash paid for her. And I said, I sound like I smoke a pack of cigarettes a day. I've never smoked a cigarette in my life. My throat is very like sore and raspy. I'm really tired. And yes, I'm going to be honest with you, even though you don't want to hear this, I've gained 18 pounds that I can't get off of me. As soon as you say weight loss to a doctor, they immediately discredit you because they just think you're looking for a quick fix, which was not the case, clearly. So she felt my throat. She's like, I feel like you're a little hard. Let's just send you for an ultrasound. To be honest with you, I mean, I don't know if she just humored me at that point, just because she didn't want me in her office telling her all of my stuff. I came in with a booklet that had like every lab work for multiple years, the scales that, I mean, I literally did her job and said, here you go. I got an ultrasound. She called me a couple of days later, said I have multiple nodules on my thyroid, sent me to a second level endocrinologist, and that is where he did a biopsy. And at that point in 2018, we ran a lot of labs here at Hormone Logics, but there were certain autoimmune tests that we never ran. We just didn't think to. It wasn't really, this is where my knowledge now, my own personal experience comes into play with what we do here now, even more so. But he goes, did the biopsy, and there's the needles in my neck. He's like, you're lighting up like a Christmas tree. You have Hashimoto's, which, as most of my girls know now, and my ladies, we test for it all the time. It's a $38.88 test. Run it. It's just an autoimmune that attacks the thyroid. For me, at that point, laying there on that table, it was a weight off my shoulder. I'm like, that explains it. That explains it. I eat clean. I just don't eat clean for an autoimmune. I still had gluten. I still had dairy, nightshades. I would eat eggplant, peppers, onions, mushrooms were all part of my prep foods. Like, they're just, I love them.
Yeah.
You know, but I was also taking in the bars and the shakes and the processed things that you don't do with an autoimmune. But he did say so I was like, oh, well, that explains everything. I'm just in my head, all within a few minutes. He's like, we've got some other stuff going on. Called me 3 days later and told me I had papillary thyroid cancer. It was in my lymph nodes. It was in my strap muscle. I had a full thyroidectomy a week and a half later. It was pretty quick. And then they removed my strap. They removed 16 lymph nodes, 2 of which were infected. Went through 2 rounds of external beam radiation and then radioactive ion therapy. In January of 2019, I was deemed, after my first PET scan, cancer-free. And then I've been every year, and I'll go back for PET scans once a year up until this year. It'll be 5 years, will be my last PET scan, knock on wood. And I'll have ultrasounds for the next 10 years just to maintain, I used my platform initially because I was a competitor and I understood and I got it. I used my platform because I was a nutritionist and figured out hormones. So I knew how that was a big change in my platform for me because it really made me, I listened before. I promise you I listened, but now I really, really hear the women when they call and when we talk. Listening's one thing, hearing's another. I'm an empath to begin with, so it's kind of difficult because being empathetic towards everybody's feelings, it's a little, it's emotional, but it now has taken us to a level where we check the gut, where we check the thyroid autoimmune tests, we check all thyroid testing. We don't just run a TSH and say, oh, you're fine, we're good. We make sure all of the thyroid labs are run. I use the analogy joking, and you've heard it before with you, with girls that I've run blood work with or whatnot. And I go, it's like going to a car dealership and them telling you that you could buy a car because they gave you a nice set of jumper cables. No, you're going to sign for your lease or your loan or whatever because your jumper cables are nice. Does it have a pedal? Does the car's engine turn over? Does the car move? And that's what it's like when somebody just runs a TSH level on you, because all they are the jumper cables that help the thyroid work. You don't do that. Or when we say, oh, I'm okay, I'm just feeling a little tired, but it's not a big deal. Again, would you drive off the car lot with the light on the dashboard and just say, it's always been there, so it's fine? That's why the labs we run, we do. And it really has allowed for us the opportunity to help so many women and men, but, the men are a little bit different, but the labs that we run for the women, it's really helped us find these autoimmunes. And as soon as people know that there is, even though it's a difficult thing to hear, like you have an autoimmune, for me, I try to say you should be proud that you advocated for yourself, that you came out of your pocket for money because your doctors that were taking your insurance didn't want to, you know, believe you. They just said you're
Mhm.
getting older, so it gave us an opportunity to really, so we connect with amazing endocrinologists, now GI doctors that we do GI mapping and testing with, that we have consulting with us. And then our main doctor, who's more, I mean, we're just super, super blessed. I mean, very lucky, but it's grown the platform tremendously. And again, it's because we hear rather than just listen. And we make sure we run the labs to rule out and find out what's going on, not just assume. And it's not just about competitors, it's women that of all ages, women that aren't stepping on stage but still want to look good. It's not just, 40, 56-year-olds, it's 30 and 20-year-olds that are still struggling. Um, but it gives us an opportunity to really dig deep, and advocate for ourselves. Advocate, that's it. Women need to advocate for their health. We do. Otherwise, we're brushed aside. I did ask my doctor after my thyroid was removed, and I sent to him, I go, can I ask you a question? And he's like, oh, okay, okay. He's like, you ask a lot of questions, but I really like you. And I'll be honest with you, I've spoken, had the honor to speak at a ThyCan event before, in 2020. And the woman that told me that the endocrinologist that told me I should hang up my heels was in the audience. And it was a really validating, um, experience, because it was like karmic. Like I was able to tell my story and say, do not let general medicine or any doctors tell you it's your age or it's your hobbies or your interest or you should hang up the heels like they did for me. Because advocate for yourself. You know in your gut something's wrong. Trust it and strive for it to get the answers, because the answers are out there. It's just, when I have a woman come to me and tell me that they are struggling with weight loss, and the first thing out of their mouth is, I promise you, I eat right. I know you do. I know you do. You wouldn't be here with me. You're not wasting your time or spending money out of pocket to if you weren't eating right. I believe you. But isn't it that sad that that's the first thing that we have to do is like defend ourselves? I'm not gaining this weight because I'm eating bad. I know, and but that's what we're programmed to do, defend.
Yeah.
So that was a
Yeah.
long-winded answer for the question.
Yeah. It was a long question. It had many parts. So I'm going to change gears a little bit and just kind of go on the blood work side of things. So when you have your average competitor, I know that you, or at least I think, and I'm pretty sure you do, is you customize the blood work that the things that you run for people based on maybe their symptoms or things that are going on. Is that correct?
That is, we have a baseline set of labs that we run for everybody that will give us a very good baseline set of tests, but it's more so than baseline. But then we add tests in depending upon what people have going on. If somebody tells me that they have anxiety, or they've struggled with anxiety or depression or anything like that with low energy, we'll add a B12 folate and we'll add in a homocysteine, which could lead us to think even showing something like MTHFR, which is a gene mutation. And then all we do is treat with the right type of B vitamins. Very simple.
Mhm.
If somebody's struggling with like monorrhea, we'll add in at that point like an FSH LH level, because now we have to kind of figure out from that side of things, why are we not getting our cycles? If somebody says that they're dealing with, really bad acne, and, we might add like a prolactin in there too, because most people don't realize that elevated prolactin can create acne, even though most people associate prolactin with, women and, nursing.
Mhm.
So we'll do those type of things in there. We also add in, if somebody's, I mean, there's inflammation markers that we'll run. We run the autoimmune pretty much on everybody. We'll run those tests because, again, it's not about what somebody looks like. If I just said, oh, just rule it out. if we can rule out Hashimoto's, we run an ANA, which kind of gives us a negative positive for like lupus, scleroderma, Sjogren's, rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis. We just positive, abnormal, those type of tests. Just, again, knowledge is power. Rule it out, find out. So yeah, we do. I mean, but if there'll be other things that other people will come to us with, and we will run those labs as well.
Yeah. Can you talk specifically about adrenals? I mean, what is something that that you would run if you had indicators that maybe those were
Yeah.
low functioning?
Yeah, so in our main set of labs, we always run a cortisol and a DHEA. As most people know, DHEA, well, most people don't know, but DHEA comes from the same adrenal gland that, your cortisol does. Our cortisol is our stress hormone. So those are always going to be part of our main set of labs that we do. You'll see those in there. If we see something comes back, or if somebody's had past experience with really, really low cortisol or really, really high cortisol, or I've had same patients for 8-9 years now, and we, over a couple of years, we're starting to see a pattern that we can supplement with the right type of adrenal supports and things like that, and still nothing's changing. We'll add in other labs. We'll run ACTH tests, which is, the adrenal corticone tests that will test to see if certain things are non-functioning, if it's more hypopituitaryism, if it's in the pituitary or if it's actually in the adrenal gland. At that point, obviously, we're not physically able to like go in and ultrasound the patient. So that's those points that we'll say, okay, this is what you need to say. This is the doctor you need to go to. This is the words that you need to share with the doctor so that they take you as not for just that, really know that you know what you're talking about when you go in there. Again, sad that we have to do that, but then we'll refer them out to, if we know a doctor in the area that we can refer to, because we have a lot of doctors across the country that we refer to, if it's in their area. Otherwise, I've even taken the time to go on and researched certain areas where certain patients are, that I'll be like, hey, do you know somebody in that area that I can, or friends in different areas, or post on my social media looking for an endocrinologist in, Scathworth, New Jersey, or something along those lines. And somebody usually comes up with a good one for me. But that's when we send them out. Because if you said to me, because we have these moving parts and so many are overlapping, if you said to me, Joanna, I'm really tired, that could be endocrinology, that could be your thyroid, that could be just life, that could be your stress hormone. So those initial set of labs will at least rule out all of thyroid, your stress hormone, your sex hormones, general things. We, again, if somebody's eosinophils, which on blood work are for white blood cell count in your CBC, basic CBC, if your eosinophils are on the high side, well, that's the white blood cells in your lungs and your gut. So I say to somebody, well, have you had any bronchial? Do you have asthma? No. Do you have bronchial stuff? No. Have you had, any type of infection? COVID? Have you had the vaccine? Any of these things? No variable factors. Okay. Are you having gut issues? Well, I mean, I'm struggling with a lot of bloating, or I constipation, or a high eosinophils could indicate a parasite. It could also indicate the apologize. It also can indicate inflammation in the gut's lining. So that's at that point where we then bring in possibly like a GI mapping, which is like an at-home stool test. We drop ship the kit to the house for the patients. They do it in the privacy of their own bathroom. What's nice about it is it is all quantitative data. So it's not just negative, positive, and it checks for 1,500 different types of bacteria. It checks for overgrowth of bacteria, small intestine, large intestine, colon. It checks for H. pylori, candida, 3 other types of yeast. It'll check our secretory IgA, which is gut's immune system. It'll let me know if you have leaky gut. It'll let me know if you have a reaction to gluten, which is anti-gliadin, and so many other amazing tests, but it uses your DNA and real quantitative data. It's not just negative, positive. So again, this goes back to the initial theory of we don't wait for something to flag high or low before we discuss it. Optimization is key. And so that's kind of where those main blood works will actually take us to even gut overseeing it. Cortisol is, overall people think, oh, my stress is really, really high, but then their cortisol levels will be extremely bottomed out low. Well, that's your adrenal gland just going, I'm done. Like I need a break. And then people are taking like the ashwagandhas, and great, because that's what you know to take when you're stressed. The problem is you're bottoming out even more because you're not taking the right type of adrenal support. Sometimes you need to bring it down, sometimes you need to bring it up. And that's where the blood work comes in. It's a blueprint of what goes on inside of you. If we buy a house, and my analogies, as you know, I use them all the time. But if we buy a house and we go in and we want to open up the walls in the house, we're not going to do that. Just go in and smack down walls without knowing what's behind the walls. We have a blueprint. That is what we do with every person that comes through this office. We get a blueprint. It is their data. It is what goes on in their body, and then we can adjust accordingly. There's nothing cookie cutter about any of the programs that we use to get to that point, whether it's just from a nutraceutical standpoint, from a natural standpoint, from a bioidentical standpoint, which are hormones like creams, or if it's from anti-aging with peptides, growth hormone, and then from a bodybuilding standpoint, the fat burners and the muscle building and that protocols too. So we can see all avenues of the blueprint and then come up with a game plan based on what the goals are.
What are some common things that you see with sex hormones when it comes to competitors' blood work, and common problems that maybe people need corrected?
Yeah. So we do see a lot of low testosterone in women. We also see low thyroid function in women. When you're deep into prep, I use the analogy that your thyroid's your engine of your car. So as competitors, we drive our car down a drag strip over and over and over and over again. And the same way, if we took that car and drove it down a drag strip, we'd bring it in and make sure that everything's checked, the oil's good, we have enough, all of the things need to be perfect in it. We don't do that. We don't think about supporting and optimizing when we're in prep a lot of the times. So we do see a lot of low thyroid function. And it's really just the engine of the car being tired. T3 under conversion, we do see a lot of, and that's basically the engine of the car not turning over, kind of puttering, and I'll age myself when I go, the car's engine used to go do 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 before we used to just get in and press a button and it would turn on. Now, we used to kind of like make that noise. We didn't use jumper cables, the TSH numbers, but the engine was really struggling to turn over. That's that T3 because it needs some help. It needs so we see that. The low testosterone, we do see a lot with women, especially, if you're in the competitive world and you're taking any type of like PEDs without like the right support. If you go that direction, sometimes people are taking it where they don't realize liver enzymes, or even like taking DHEA to support your thyroid, to support your testosterone levels when if you're taking any type of like oxandrolone or something along those lines. There's so many different avenues, but seeing a lot of we work really hard to get to where we're going, but we forget that we feeling this tired isn't just, oh, it's just part of prep. Yes, it's part of prep, but there could be underlying things going on and just making sure we're supporting it. The good part about most of like with your girls, with our team, with a couple of the other teams that I work closely with, some of the really, really good teams that care about the women, they will make sure that they start their prep with a baseline blood work done. And to be honest with you, it makes it easier for the coaches. I mean, our coaches are out there, they're like pulling their hair out, going, okay, it looks like she's eating everything right. It looks like she's like, so for them, selfishly, it helps them too, because they've got that blueprint. But that is what a good coach will do. They'll say, let's get a baseline on you. Let's make sure that you're healthy to go whatever avenue we're supposed to do. Don't be scared, because if things are not optimal, we'll optimize you, but it'll also help when we hit that point of being stuck. I've hit a plateau, I'm stuck, and then to go get your blood work done at that point, you've already like outsourced everything in your body to try to, get to that point that you're at. And so getting that baseline blood work done, that's what, a good coach will have you do, which you do with your girls. And, my coach does with our girls and all the coaches on those teams. And, there are some out there that don't, but, I hope for women, for them to advocate for themselves before going into a protocol of any type of prep. They should always know what's going on.
Yeah, and it just helps from a coach's perspective. I just always appreciate where I can work within my scope of practice through, if the client is okay with it and you're include me in the call. I just feel like it helps me try to make those lifestyle changes. If they're having certain issues, like for example, like if they have high cholesterol, I mean, that's an easy thing for us to change their diet to more of a Mediterranean, low cholesterol type of diet like that. Or if they're having adrenal problems, you know, making sure that we're not like doing hit cardio and overtraining and maybe backing down and having more rest days and recovery time. So I really appreciate that. Is there a good time, or I guess I should say, is there a bad time to take blood work where it wouldn't really benefit the athlete, like in terms of like pre and post prep? Like, is there a certain window of time that you recommend, like after a prep, to take that blood work? Or?
Mhm. I guess it really depends on how long your prep was, how long is, and like what you did during your prep. If there was any type of, if there was anything that you were taking during prep, if you're on any type of testosterone therapy or anything like that, you want to give your body enough time to rest and heal and come off of, whatever it is that you might have been taking, even if it was just a fat burner. You've set your adrenals crazy on fire, and if you these even some of these over the counter people are taking, ephedrine and caffeine and aspirin and doing these combos, and it's great, but minimum 30 days, ideally 60 days off of any type of, other like anything like that, like a fat burner or any type of PEDs or anything like that, minimum 30 days. I always say give your body the time to heal that it took you to start your, and usually it's that 30-day window before you like, okay, I know the next 30 days, in 30 days I'm starting my prep. That's pretty but I'm 30 days I'm starting my prep. I've got these 30 days to kind of gather my thoughts, get myself mentally prepared, make sure I have all my vitamins in place, everything I need, get my blood work completed. Give yourself at least 30 days after. The times that people come to me that are like, I'm stuck, and I don't have a baseline for them to begin with. If they come to me and I see that they're in the middle of a prep and I see their cortisol is really, really tanked or really, really high, we can still work with it. But that is not the most ideal time. The most ideal time is before going into a prep for your competing, and at least minimum 30 days after it, preferably 60. If that window works. I mean, like a lot of the girls, we're going from show to show to show, seasons, everything's compacted. And then if you do, then you, like the pro girls earning, their points, getting into the Olymp, or, the trying to win, get right in, their show to show to show. And then the ones that are like competing because they're so close, they want their pro card, so they keep going, going, going. It's difficult because you've got to give yourself a little bit more time at the end to heal. You know, do your best to stay in a good reverse when you come out, because that's only going to make it easier for your blood work. Because if you come out and just go balls to the wall and just eat and don't stay on a good reverse, it just makes blood work even more wonky when we do it. So,
Yeah. So speaking of PEDs, what are some blood markers are that people should really be paying attention to if they do use those in a contest prep? What are some things that can get affected in a negative way?
mm-hmm. So one of the main things, obviously, is we must know is liver enzymes. I've seen girls that have been taking even some of the SARMs and not protecting the liver through the process. Liver is our filter. Liver is actually where the thyroid makes a conversion to a usable form to T3.
Mhm.
It's also made in the gut. But those liver enzymes are important. Even just when we look at inflammatory markers, so like when we look at your white blood cell count, your eosinophils, your basophils, those levels are all inflammatory markers. The monocytes can tell us about inflammation too. So we'll look at that. Kidneys, creatinine levels. As athletes, we have higher creatinine levels. We take in higher protein diets for the most part. Not this isn't anything across the board, but kidneys. The biggest part about PEDs is that people don't realize that we need to drink more water. But then we say, oh, we drink a gallon a day. We don't need, that's more than the average person. But then you're also training harder than the average person. You're also taking stuff that is needing water to process and eliminate from the body. So then we're not getting the water that we need for digestion and for gut and the gut health. So we see a lot of like kidney stuff. Thankfully, I will tell you, Amy, honestly, over the last couple of years, and maybe it's because of I do work with, a lot of the same teams that really do focus on health. Um, we have been seeing a lot. It's been much better because I really think a lot of the coaches and that really care about their athletes and really know like, okay, this is important, and they've been educated. You're crazy educated with your girls. You make sure that they're doing the right things, that they're not overtraining and not, the it's water doesn't seem like it's an important factor. It is. It's huge. It's huge. And then the other thing that, we try to look at is gut. Even though that is it's a big factor in why the inflammation goes on and why we have the digestion issues and why we have the overgrowth of bacteria, because of, not only the liver processing, but the toxins, oxidative stress, the body not being able to release the toxins because of dehydration, then the constipation that we get from taking, some of this. And then and then they're starting to take, we see girls that are, because they're constipating, they're taking a bunch of laxatives, and then the laxatives are dehydrating them. And then we have kidney problems. So it's a one big, awful cyclic pattern.
Mhm.
But if you get your baseline ahead of time, know the importance and education. One of the things that and as you've heard, and a lot of the girls know, I am detailed on my blood work, almost to the point where it's like too detailed, I think. And sometimes it's over the head, but I always send that plan of care afterwards and write down everything so they don't have to feel overwhelmed. But I am a big advocate for education. And if I can educate somebody on their labs and teach them, then they can advocate for themselves and help other women in the process as well. By advocating for yourself, you're also educating yourself. And in the education process, oh, you know what? I know I need to do X, Y, and Z now because yes, I want to take it to the next level. If you're going to do PEDs, if you're going to run a marathon, and you have to understand the body and what that long run is going to do to the body so you know how to prepare for it. So if you can be educated as to what bodily functions are necessary or what you need within you to be healthy through this process and to be a true competitor, longevity of the sport, and to be a healthy human every single day, then that's the part that's most important. I can't stress it enough. Understand how sad is it when you have people that come to you and they go, yeah, I've been taking that. Okay, what for? I don't know. My coach just told me to take it. Do you know what it's doing? No, I mean, I think it's supposed to tighten me up. It's also doing X, Y, and Z and with no blood work, but here's what your blood work shows. It's okay, your blood work shows this, but we're going to fix it. But we first need to tell you, you don't need to be taking that. Or you can take that if you had taken this or done this first or knew about this first. And there's a lot of that out there. And I had a girl yesterday say to me that she's been on some SARM for the last year and a half. Same SARM for a year and a half.
No worries.
Wellness center. Like, okay. Liver support? No. And I just, as in a very professional way, let's get your labs done. Let's see where you're at with everything. For the meantime, can we stop what you're taking right now? Just let's get new labs in, give yourself 2 weeks and then go get new labs and let's just see where you're at. And but so, that's the biggest thing. If you can understand, which we do a great job, if somebody knows why they're taking, I want somebody to know why they're taking vitamin B. My homocysteine was high, which creates cellular anxiety, which also B vitamins being low is what breaks through the blood. B vitamins break through the blood-brain barrier. So that's my dopamine, my happy endorphins. I'm depressed. My gut's not healthy, my brain's not healthy, and my vitamin B levels are low. Let's add in vitamin B. People feel better, but they know why they're taking it, not because I'm just taking it. So
Yeah. Kind of circling back to something that you said earlier, I wanted to ask about, so you had mentioned like creatinine levels are usually elevated in athletes, and then I usually see like the bun as well. What are your recommendations when people are trying to take like, what tests need to be like fasted and like what time of day is optimal and things like that?
Yeah. So I always say every blood work should be without any type of exercise and without any type of food. Not because food is going to raise every level, but food is going to change the metabolics in the body that could in turn. So if you take your vitamin in the morning, it's going to process through your liver, which could slightly inflame a liver. It may be dramatic, it may be over the top, but don't work out that morning, please. Drink your water like normal glass of water in the morning. You don't need to be so dehydrated that they can't pull blood from you. And on top of it, just be fasted, because our molecular structures, if I were to geek out on people, like our cells are always processing anything we're doing, whether it's thinking, walking, breathing, or eating. So yes, maybe particularly your A1C level isn't going to go up if you ate something that morning. It's not going to change because that's an average of your glucose over 3 months. But just don't do it. Like our labs, the majority of our labs that we run, there are a good portion of them need to be fasted. There are certain things, I know there's when somebody's getting deeper into like thyroid, we'll tell them, possibly don't take your biotin for 7 days before we get more in-depth bio labs on, or thyroid labs on you, because that could sway it a little bit. But at first, I'm not going to tell somebody they can't take their biotin. It's not, I'm aware of what certain nutraceuticals, my doctors are crazy aware of things like even calcium levels and how it affects our thyroids and our parathyroids and things like that. So we just say no vitamins in the morning, drink your water, and don't work out. And then go about, with testosterone creams and things, we try to tell you 2 full days before you're doing your creams. With testosterone injections, we say 4 full days to get a good read to see where you're at. But fasted is just go fasted. I mean, and in the morning is always the best, because that is like our waking, and it's an idea for us because we're waking up and getting to the appointment to get our blood drawn. There's not so many mitigating factors in between. So if you go even with cortisol, is that the most ideal way to test cortisol? No. Is it better to do a 4-point cortisol test? Absolutely. But that morning cortisol gives us a good inclination on how somebody starts out their day or how somebody slept. If you have really high cortisol in the morning, I can almost guarantee you people have a hard time sleeping. And that's ultimately, sorry.
No worries.
Hi, buddy. So that, ultimately the biggest thing. So that's
that your
our old
dog?
man. Yeah, well, he's our oldest of the 3. We have Doberman. So he's our
Oh,
old man. He's gonna be 11, he's pretty sick. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we bring him to the office so he can kind of get a break from the other 2. So
okay.
we left home and it's my old man. So
Yeah. So if
my
you're
poor,
listening and you're not watching on YouTube, a
yeah.
dog just came into the office.
Yeah. We're
So
a big happy family here.
I love it.
If anybody sees me or knows me or follows me on social media, they know my dogs. I have my son, who's amazing, and I have my dogs. And my dogs we rescue animals left and right around here. I just found one in the parking lot that I was hoping that I could get rid
Aw.
of and still somehow he's at my house, little cat. Like I did not want a cat, another one, and he's somehow at my house now. So anybody that wants a really cool cat, just let me know. He's ready to go to a good home. But yeah, so we're a family here at Hormologics, and it's such like I get emotional when I think about it because I am so blessed to do what I do. I'm so blessed to work with women like yourself and coaches that really care. I'm so blessed to have the experience that I've had, and I am thankful that I went through what I went through, because I do believe that I was given, the cancer, which took me a really long time to say those words. A lot of therapy. They're like, my therapist was like, "Do you realize you always say when I was sick? When I was sick, you never say I had cancer." And I'm like, so? And she's like, you have to like come to terms with it. But it happened so fast with me that I've used I really believe that I was given that because I have this opportunity and this platform to help other women, and, you know, to really listen and hear other women. Um, and we have such a, I mean, we're all like family here. Most of us have worked together for the last 10, 12 years. And um, you could probably hear guys and they're all talking about through the walls. They talk about men and erections and all these kind of things that are going on through this wall. And I'm on the phone with women that are talking about like how their sex drive is non-existent, and and these ones are talking about, so, or we bounce like, here her husband needs to talk to you, or here your wife needs to talk to you. So, but we definitely are a family here, and our patients have been with us a really long time. And we get new patients all the time, and I try to
Yeah.
treat every patient the same and take the time to, and I appreciate that people realize that I'm busy and they are willing to wait, and I do whatever I can to get everybody moved up, and just short of without my coach yelling at me, like, get out of the office and go to the gym. Like, you need to worry about you now. So,
Yeah, I just
um,
really appreciate your heart and all of the dedication that you've helped so many women, and it's really, really appreciated. I really appreciate you so much. You've helped me a lot just personally, and then just all my athletes, and you have such a good heart and you're such a genuine person. So
thank
thank
you
you for
so
all of
much.
that.
I
Um,
appreciate you very much. Thank you.
yeah, I have so many more questions that I want to ask. I don't know if we have a little bit of time for a couple more questions that, um,
Absolutely.
so as far as you had talked about oxandrolone, and I just feel like it's really important for our industry to understand that, like, and I know you made an analogy way back when about kind of like it was something about a shoe, and we're maybe not the shoe that is for everyone. So
Mhm.
when it comes to like efficacious like dosing and prescriptions and things like that, and use with PEDs in our industry, do you have any thoughts about maybe people just need to know like what is oxandrolone? Where did it originate from? What's the history behind it? What was it intended to be used for, and things like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I'm on the competitive side of the world where, I'm okay with whatever somebody chooses to do. If they want to be totally natural, or if they want to start using EDs, if they want to go that route. But the most important thing I tell anybody is, no matter what you choose to do, if you go that route, make sure wherever you're getting it from, you're sourcing from a true place where you are not just buying some. And I'm not saying everybody off the street and all that stuff is bad, or underground's off, but in my world, from what I've seen, it is. And, we see more and more fake stuff out there. Anavar itself, oxandrolone being the legal name, is something that was used years ago. It actually first, when they first brought it out, people were using it in AIDS patients, and it's because of the muscle atrophy that happened. It became a little bit more in the last 20 years or so, more so in the world of
Your dog wants in so bad. You can let him in.
so bad he wants to
Keeps
get in.
pawing at the
Um,
door.
yeah, if anybody hears, that's my old man. That's Vader. But it was it's for muscle atrophy. One of the biggest things, especially, and I go back to the thyroid thing, which is interesting, is one of the main side effects of thyroid disease is muscle atrophy. So, what doctors started using it in patients that were having muscle atrophy, like for, elderly patients. They were using it for people that had, severe thyroid disease. They were using it for cancer patients. Of course, it gets into the bodybuilding world. Now, in the bodybuilding world, for women, I have thyroid disease. Justifiable. I don't have a thyroid, I should say, but it's still thyroid disease. For women that are going through menopausal changes, muscle atrophy is huge, protecting our bones. The right use of it, not taking too much for a longer period of time, not doing dosaging. I can't legally tell somebody what, like, just on a podcast, like, oh, this is what the dose you should take.
Right.
Get your blood
I
work
wouldn't ask
done.
you.
Yeah, see what your levels are, see what your liver looks like, see what your enzymes are. Make sure that you're not taking something that's going to inflame the liver even more and not be able to, backtrack it. But less is more in a lot of this stuff that we're doing. The new SARMs and all of these things are out there. At one point, you know, Ibutamorin, which is a SARM, was like an underground, it made it into FDA approved pharmacies now. It's not an FDA approved product, it's an FDA approved. Let me just.
Yeah. She's letting the old man beat her in.
Yeah, buddy, go lay down.
Such a pretty dog.
Thank you. He's we're all Doberman lovers in our house. So but the thing about like even with SARMs, eventually I think that some of them will start to get even put into, pharmacies as well. But I do believe that as long as you have the right guidance with whatever you're using, and there's some that I don't think are great for women in general. I mean, my opinion, I don't think, but I think it's being used too much in the industry, and you're seeing facial structure changes and growth in places that women shouldn't be having growth, and things like that. But I'm an advocate of Anavar. Like, I love it. I think it's great. And I have no problem saying that if a person takes it the right way and they have the right guidance, the person that's taking it is somebody that truly needs muscle building, not somebody who just is lazy. And that's where you see people just taking more and more and more because they just want to get bigger. And that's where the damage is coming in long term to their bodies. So I have, again, I've always been an open book with it. I mean, I've done my share of them. I mean, I take them if I need to. It just depends on where I am in my prep or if I am needing it at all. I mean, taking like fat burners, like you can go the route of an albuterol rather than buying an underground clenbuterol. That's for veterinary use. You know, there are other opportunities, and it is okay to express when you're speaking to somebody in your medical professional, like in our world, in the medical world and wellness, that you say, hey, listen, this is my goal. My goal is I want to be on stage. I need to drop body fat. I've been stuck, but we've cleared out everything else. It's not my adrenals, I'm optimized. It's not my thyroid, I'm optimized. There might be just a metabolic dysfunction going on, and then we do a little albuterol. Or I need to hold my glutes more. As women, as we get older, we lose body fat. The body's smart. We're going to go after the lard, and not go after the lard before we go after the meat. They're going to take our muscle before it takes our fat. It's smart. So some of the girls that take, the Anavar to maintain lean muscle and the density that we need, the crispness, the holding it, because we're masters and we are going to lose our muscle because it's smart. So those are the types of reasons, and I feel, and our doctors feel, is acceptable as long as the health is good, is acceptable for somebody to be on a protocol that has like PEDs.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So, unfortunately, we have to wrap things up, but you've given us so many gold nuggets of information, and thank you so much for your time and coming on today. If our listeners wanted to say thank you or reach out to you if they have questions, or maybe they, are hearing your story and hearing about these different things, and they want to reach out to you for health services and help in that area, how can they get a hold of you and how can they find you?
Sure. So you can always go on to hormonelogics.com, and then it's with an S, and it's HORMONELOGICS.com. And when you just put in for, request a consultation, just make sure they click that they're a competitor, because then it'll get segued into the sports side of things over here with me, and making sure, or they could just write in there, how they heard I was on, I heard the podcast, I was, I'm XYZ, or I was referred by somebody. Some of the girls like to reach out on Instagram. I promise you, I just don't see it. I can't tell you. I went in the other day and there was like 8 or 9 different emails from people over the last few weeks, and I just don't see the others and that Instagram. So I'm not ignoring you. I know that's the place to go, but just go online, put it in, or you can always email me directly, and I'll get you set up for it. My email address is joanna@hormonelogics.com. Just email me directly. Tell me where you came from. I'll get you a link to my calendar, and sometimes that's easier. But yeah, or you can always call the front, but they're going to just put you back to the calendar anyway. So
Yeah.
I will say now my calendar is booked out for 6 weeks. I move people around. So please don't just give up because it's not something right away. Just tell me. I have a lot of girls that are like, hey, I'm competing in 6 weeks. Can you help me? I'm like, we always move people around. We do what we can for our girls and our ladies. I love our industry. We are so blessed and so lucky to have these amazing women around us and men. But we are just really an elite group of women, and that care about their health. You don't even have to compete. Just that you care enough about your health that you want to take it to the next level, to feel good, to be healthy for the longevity, whether for yourself, for your family, for your children. So I look forward to a long, God willing future in this. And thank you as always.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. And I'll be sure to put all of that information in the show notes so that you can refer back to that. Um, if you would like to apply for the team, you can go to glamgirlbikini.com and hit the get started button. You can find us on Instagram at Prep Life Podcast or at Glam Girl Bikini. And this is your founder and CEO of Glam Girl Bikini signing off. Thanks for listening, guys.